Hi everyone, I'm lwelters, and today we're going to be taking a tour of the TMD gallery, and the exhibition that we have up right now is called The Other White Dress. It is under the direction of Margaret Ordonez, who is a professor and the director of our historic textile and costume collection. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Dr. Margaret Ordonez, sometimes known as Dr. O.
Today we're going to do this virtual tour of the textile gallery, and the last exhibition that we had here was on wedding fashions from the 18th century to the almost to the present, and all of the 20th century dresses that we had in that exhibition were white. And so to follow up on that, we decided to have this exhibition that's called The Other White Dress. They're non-wedding fashions. Significant times in the women's apparel history where white has been important. And so the first one that is probably the most elaborate of the dresses in this exhibition starts right here by the door. And it's a presentation dress that a woman wore to be presented to the Queen and King of England at the court of St. James. And the protocol for the presentations were very strict, and one of the things is that the dress that the women wore who were being presented at court would have, the dresses would be white. And this one, however, has a lot of gold yarn on it, wrapped core yarns that are wrapped in gold, and beads. It's actually a rather strange dress, but we do have a picture of the woman wearing it. And so that helped us a lot in trying to reproduce this dress. It has a train that hangs separate from the garment, so she would have had to have a harness on because it's cloth of gold, and it's behind the sign right here. But the weft yarns in that fabric are wrapped core yarns, gold wrapped core yarns, and so it's a rather heavy fabric. So it's been a very elaborate presentation gown, and the date of it is 1925, and it's a typical 20s, slightly lower than normal waistline.
And this is a designer dress by Jean Lanvin, which you may have heard of.
May have studied in
yes,
class.
may have studied in the class.
As a matter of fact. And so, if it's going to be a designer dress, it's got to be outrageous, doesn't it? All right. The next set of other white dresses that we have are graduation dresses, and the one that Dr. Welters wants us to look at is this one right here, that's dated 1922. And by then, skirt lengths had begun to shorten. At that point, the waistline hasn't dropped much, but as this is a normal waistline. And this is also for a girl who was graduating from, I'm looking to see how old she was.
It could be 8th grade.
Probably 8th grade graduation in 1922, with a lot of lace insertions and lace edging, of which you see on all these dresses. And in fact, we see it on the next group of dresses also, having lace insertions. So right over here at the end of this front case are two dresses that are very typical of the turn of the century. We saw girls and then women wearing what we call lingerie dresses. They're white cotton dresses that can be laundered, and one can keep them cleaner than one if was wearing a silk dress. And there's a good bit of lace insertion in the one on the left here. The one on the right is very special to Rhode Island because it was designed for a special event. There was a Navy group that was coming up the Narragansett Bay, and they were going to have a ball at the towers. in Narragansett. And this woman had this dress designed for that event. And so we have kind of the eagle, the bald eagle with the shield on its chest, and it's repeated a number of times. There's a big motif of the eagle with, it's kind of like the seal of the United States with a laurel wreath around it. So it's quite elaborate, and it would have taken a good bit of time ahead of time for this to be hand embroidered, so it was ready for the event that she attended. It typically has the extra fabric for the monobosom and the high collar that is actually very small. It just barely fit our dress form here. And these, of course, are cotton with petticoats under them, so to create a nice hip line for that first decade of the 20th century. So now we can go around the corner. And the dress in the center on the back here is another all-over lace dress. Machine-made laces. The dress we just got through seeing was hand-embroidered. This is machine-made lace, however, and it's a typical 1950s. That meaning that the skirt is quite full, normal waistline. We might not have the bust line quite pointy enough, because in fact the ideal bust line was a very pointed bust line. Boleros were typical of the 50s. And this would be a length, what did you call it?
Ballerina.
Ballerina length that would be for late afternoon, evening events that one, instead of having all the way
We
long.
also see a lot of wedding dresses and prom dresses that are that length as well during this 1950s period.
And this is typical of what might be worn to a party or to a prom. That's what this group of 50s and 1960s. This is also a 50s silhouette, and although the skirt's not real full, it depends on how full one's mother would let them have it. How many crinolines you could have on underneath that would fill out that skirt. Then typical of the 60s is this sheath right here that is floor length with the high waistline and the bow and the neckline. It's the epitome of that style.
1964, 65, 66 is when these were very popular for proms and for bridesmaids' dresses.
And parties. Parties also. And we're also, interestingly, getting into some of the synthetic fibers into the garments by now. Crinolines and petticoats could be made out of nylon. And of course we've had acetate petticoats around for a long time, since the 1920s. And headed toward polyester included in some of these garments. Definitely by the 70s we have polyesters. Over the 60s though, we have a lot of polyester knits. This is woven, of course. And then backing up a little bit in time and going to that first decade again with the monobosom, although that neckline, Dr. Welters is telling me, is more typical possibly of the teens than of the 1900s.
It doesn't have the high collar.
The high collar that we saw on
Yes,
the dress around the corner. But women were going to work, and they wore shirtwaist or blouses with their skirts. And lots of times the skirts were dark, but since this is the other white dress, we had white skirts to choose from also. And so this is teens, and this is teens. This is the skirt, anyway, is a little earlier, and the woman is the skirt. This skirt is not much shorter than it's
starting the
just
climb
beginning to go up. But it has some of the details that we find in skirts, which we certainly didn't find that much in the first decade. And so women who were in more professional roles then would have suits that they could wear to work. So that's what this is representing.
Let's finish up with the hat on this one ensemble, which is a straw boater borrowed from menswear.
And we have both men's and women's boaters in our collection, and lots of fashion plates also that show the men and women both wearing boaters.
Thank you, Dr. O.
You're welcome. And so some people may have a chance to see this exhibition in the fall.
And it will be up until
We get another one.
until we get that one up, which is going to probably be
It'll be a month or so that this will be up in the fall. So come see, because there are other things here that don't fit into your 240s classes that you might be interested to come see.
Thank you.